I am Sun's pending reality and have been building Bunshin Terminal, which is part of the Bunshin Industries project for a number of years now. It originally started out as kind of like a mocap experiment with some AI stuff, and it's slowly evolved into more of a creative tool with the goal to be like my dream game. In a futuristic Shintokyo, uh, where there is a huge disparity, very cyberpunky, but a lot of religious motifs about a lot about mind bringing with Shintoism and Buddhism, religion being multicultural and stuff like that. But yeah, I think a lot of the motion capture tools is actually public now on Bunshin.xyz, and there's a version 009, which was the first implementation of a package build of the motion capture tools with a little bit of kind of in-world AI stuff. The in-world AI might not be functional anymore because it's not public, accessible, but this is an evolution of that, and this is basically version 018. So it's basically become a complete rebuild, been merging all of that tech into something that is playable, with some creative tools built in. So then yeah, maybe just jump into the character customization a little bit.
Yeah, that would be great.
So
Let's do it.
all right, so some of the textures are loading in. Yeah, if you've noticed, the face is kind of moving. That's because I have the Live Link app on my iPhone running and tracking the motion on my face. This is actually built to also include full body tracking. Originally it was Rococo and other tools, but now it's basically built around the VMC protocol, which is mostly any type of motion tracking tool that you have on for the VTuber space. And if it's able to export the motion and just direct it to the Bunshin app, then it'll just work. You can do body track, full body tracking, half body, and with this one you could just do the face with the app facing at you. So this is just really basic. You can change the roughness, the metallic, stuff like that. Save it as your profile. Right now, this is probably the most rudimentary of the character customization will be at the stage. Just show some other options. Yeah, there's a little clipping there, but don't mind that for now. This is probably going to have a pretty significant rework. Have the female side as well. And a lot of this is built around just kind of embracing Lumen. And a lot of it is based around Lumen because of the fact that the creative mode and a lot of things I want in the world to be dynamic, not actually baked in. Like you could make your own city, you can have your own scenes and your own lighting. So let me switch
So
back real
Lumen is
quick.
the toolkit in
Yes, it's
Unreal that
it's the
provides
global
real-time lighting.
illumination.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Correct. Yep.
Rather than baking.
Um, yes. And then, so the cool thing is you can take a screenshot in here as well. You can use that and share that for content. If you look at the bottom, we have the Emergence plugin in action. So here, you can scan your wallet and access your inventory. And for certain things that are plugged into to utilize that, like GLB files for importing 3D files, which I'll show it later, and VRMs, which you can just load in to replace this character completely as well. I already have one loaded in and connected, so let me just load that one up.
I love that glitch effect. I love that glitch effect you have.
Yeah, yeah. The idea was to. The hard part was kind of thinking about how to how to how do I explain it? How to have something down the line when I do have my lore and the world running. How do I merge? Because some VRMs are going to be really wacky, and how do you have both kind of work within? There was an anime called Psychopaths way back, and they had a really cool idea where the future, a lot of clothing and aesthetics it was all holographic interfaces. So it kind of took a little bit of that, and so that even if something doesn't fit the world, it'll still look it still makes sense within the context of that universe.
You know,
Um,
that's so interesting because, and I think it's such an interesting discussion point because I think as we talk about interoperability and the idea of the open metaverse, it's the idea that I can take my avatar anywhere. And I think it starts to change how game developers think about game design because you can have this connective avatar, which is interoperable, and then you can have a fluff world avatar come in. And the whole point of interoperability is that even though those avatars may have an aesthetic, they may aesthetically suit a particular world, that you can actually take them anywhere. So there's something super, I mean, so just to kind of really drive home what everybody's seeing here, you are basically taking from on-chain data, you're bringing an avatar into this world, and this same avatar could be brought into another world, and that's the whole point of, what the open metaverse is and what Emergence is for.
yeah, it's great because like this is purely just a client. There's no servers, no nothing. If when you're playing multiplayer, just peer to peer. And what's really cool is, before you would have games release, you have the servers, you have the multiplayer servers. They suddenly stop. The servers are gone. Your in-app purchases disappear. Whereas here, as long as you have the client and your friends have the client, the your in-app purchase, which would be, like your avatar, your NFT, pulling the data from the IPFS just happens and it's just there. And it's really cool right now. Like, they're static things, but it gets really exciting when you think about, well, can you have personalities? Can you have, modded weapons? Can you have skins and things that are completely permissionless, but they still load into Bunshin fine? I think that's a really cool direction I've wanted to explore, and that's why I've really embraced the VRM and also GLB for future stuff like the like physical objects, scenes, and that stuff just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
The USD format is another file format that they use in like Hollywood production, which also opens up another avenue of really high fidelity content that's interoperable, and it's really exciting. Yeah.
I think too, working with and anybody in the audience who wants to jump in with questions or comments, please do, or put up your hand or join us, whatever. A little side comment here. This is a VRM. VRMs it's a file format for avatars, which makes them interoperable. That's the simple version. Most of the VRMs I think we've seen to date trend towards anime. They're very kind of cartoony. And I think that's because you're looking for an interoperable format and therefore you're building for the lowest common denominator. You're looking for something that can be used on a live stream on YouTube, as well as maybe in a game world. What One of the benefits I think of working with you and our approach with the connective in particular was to try to like push the boundaries of how people think about what interoperable assets should look like. So we sort of push these avatars more in the direction of AAA gaming. But even though avatars are interoperable, it doesn't mean that they're aesthetically interoperable, right? And the
Hmm.
reason I say that is that when we were developing these avatars and the playground, the artist like Lucy, who helped create these, she would go back and forth with you and tweak things like this, like the shininess of the material, and then she would take it over into a web viewer, and she would see like, okay, so the avatar is interoperable, but I also want it to look cool across different worlds. So I think there's a real evolving discipline of, I don't know what you would even call it. It's like art that is interoperable. I think
Yeah,
that
and
becomes
that's
a true skill set, and it's something I hope Open Meta, like
mm,
we can end up with a community of craftspeople who understand what that means. Like that to me is a big part of what Open Meta can be.
yeah, and the great thing about how we worked on this was uh, I've always been a proponent of physically based rendering, which is materials that are not just like a cartoony lit thing that emit light, and that's how they fake the anime look, but materials that uh, interact with the light correctly. And you could also achieve the anime look that way as well. But I was working with the VRM consortium, the association in Japan that handles the standard of the VRMs, and we were talking about, giving more examples of PBR, um, of physically based rendered kind of avatars that can have that interaction with their scene. And I think this is a great example of just that in action, just kind of just playing around with the reflections on the helmet, for example. It's wild.
Yeah. Anyway, listen, I'm sorry for taking you on a little aside. I get excited when I see the Connect
No worries.
advertised. We'll let you take the tour.
And ignore that funkiness right there. But the other example here is doing a hybrid, where it is the base body from the Bunshin game, but also adapting the head onto the characters. So it's kind of like a cosmetic kit bashing of your avatar, whereas the VRM is on the top and then the in-game avatar um, over here. So uh, maybe can switch over to scoping out a little bit more, and I might start with where it all kind of started, where the version 009 had a really simple kind of a VTubing studio. And actually, let me make sure that I have my global hardware ray tracing on. Yeah, the great thing about working with the latest Unreal is the fidelity that you get from the reflections and the interaction of light within the scene. Um, so this is all running on a 4070 Ti Super, but generally, as long as you have roughly 8 GB of VRAM, we're actually testing it. Another player, um, we've been prepping on a 1070 Ti, and you would have to like bring down the hardware ray tracing, but it still looks just as good. Um, this was the original concept for Shin Tokyo, when it all first started, and it's evolved quite a bit after a while. It all started with the idea of to create helmets for Bunshin that would be kind of a cosmetic to whatever type of avatar that you use, and a nod to the Cultivate guys over here and the Bunshin helmets, which hasn't been released, and hopefully I'll be able to release with you guys. Okay, so let me show you where it's gone from here, from this kind of photo mode with a little bit of mocap and facial tracking, to a more creative suite that actually allows you to change your environment a little bit more. So So as you can tell, like the head actually loads in. So every single time you're joining a new level, it's actually downloading from IPFS and loading the VRM. If you're in full body mode, it will load that in as well. So Emergence VRM mode, and it'll just load in the character. Okay. Now let me change the scene a tad bit real quick. I always love sunsets, a little bit of wind, movement,
And just to
and
be
then.
clear, like I think there's just to be clear for everybody, like these
Mhm.
tools are available to your users, right? That's part of the idea is that this becomes a creative toolkit that people can come in and explore and experiment and use it for, I don't know, machinima or
Correct. So the end game with this one is to really just turn it into uh, kind of a dream game with that's inspired out of Ghost in the Shell, Akira, my love for 80s and 90s kind of more darker sci-fi anime. But the idea was I wasn't really a fan of how those stories always ended up being this it's the detective, it's the main it I wanted to know more about the everyday man in these worlds, and being able to have a mainline story, but then the tools for users to expand it without, reverse engineering the game or all of that, that they could just do it in engine. Or if they wanted to, they could just make their own worlds that they want to that fit, um, like how they want to build the world. So it's really kind of built literally from the ground up in the sense of, like, if you see me, I'm each of these things here. Actually, let me show you before I just run off with this. Is that it's a lot of things that I've been using in my creative toolkit for doing music videos for artists and stuff like that. But the Kit Bash collection, um, some assets here and there that I use in like my cyberpunk scenes, but then adding the procedural tools to easily make a really complex scene really quickly. And uh, the other part was after that, it was the fact that I wanted to change the terrain. And so all of these mountains, they're actually stamped in runtime. They get, you can deform the place. Let me actually over here maybe.
It's like God mode, right? I just love it.
Just a second. Yeah, you could just make vast changes to the landscape very quickly by just scaling these like stamps that change the landscape around you. And as you place things, they'll also conform to that area as well. So let me just take another simple city over here. Bam. And this is probably the most rudimentary state that this is going to be at, because it's really just kind of scattering these tools, but it's been a slow process of working on procedurally generating intersections and all of that.
Oh, just
Enable user to make calls. And now, just one second here. Let me wrap up the scene real quick. So you got things, mountains, and the cool thing is if you put them next together, they'll also just blend in together as well, which is really cool. So these are like really basic shapes to create kind of a scene that you want. It doesn't have to be massive; it could also be really small as well. Maybe that is pretty atmospheric. Oh, let me just turn that on. And it's player, so if you are in a session with another user, you can just kit bash these scenes together and use the motion capture to act out scenes, create content with VRMs or with the Bunshin character as well. A lot of stuff in here is like built around just things I've learned over doing collaborations with other artists. So we have time-based systems, we have slow. So let me just try turning that on real quick. Go to the world settings, turn the slow-mo, get slow-mo shots. And that we've been working on. Would it be good to provide the playgrounds in general?
yeah. I think that would yeah. I think that would be super useful. Because everything that you showed, I mean, you showed bringing buildings in, clouds, mountains, and any of that content in theory could be on chain. And so that's the idea that your avatar is on chain, but you could have a motorcycle, or I love your hoverboard. You may have a hoverboard that was from an on-chain collection, and be able to buy that item on the Emergence marketplace or other marketplaces, and then bring it into an environment like Bunshin by just clicking a button, and the thing that's been sitting in your wallet on MetaMask is suddenly in a virtual world. So yeah, I'd love to. I mean,
Uh,
yeah.
Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love. I mean, I think most people have had a little peek of the playground, so I think it would be amazing to even walk into that a bit more.
Yep. So usually, as it's not minty yet, you can just trigger the emergence import once you have logged in with your MetaMask.
I can't tell if it's me or him.
And what's cool about this, because the NFT acts almost like as a repository / server for other players, when in multiplayer and you're loading in, everyone else is also loading in the same thing. So it works in multiplayer, which is really wild. Give it a moment to download through. Oof, what's going on? Let me try that one more time. There may be a hiccup. I can also load it locally as well. Just 1 second.
We are getting some stuttering on your feed a little bit, Sins.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh, okay.
I wonder if. I mean, I'm watching it and we're seeing such like beautifully rendered stuff. It's kind of like when you were building a lot, it started to get stuttery, and then when you stand still,
Oh,
it's okay. I don't know why that would be.
no, I think it was just that the GLB was actually downloading in. Um, so yeah, this is the playground, and it's just loaded in from the IPFS and should. Well, what's really cool about this is this has been set up in a way to uh, well work with all of the benefits of Unreal and also a lot of the scripting that I've done for my game and kind of merge both. So you can see the wetness reflecting, the lights reacting, um, and it has all the collisions. So you're interacting with the space. In just 1 second, I think I'm in the dark. Okay, and it's spawning things like the door here that you can interact with. And let me change the time of day a
It's
little to
so
get.
epic looking. I don't know if there's any Founders Pass holders here, but some of you who minted a connective avatar have seen on our marketplace preview. You may have seen this playground on the web, and so you've seen it now on the web, and now you're seeing it in Bunshin, showing you two things. First of all, it's showing you that it's interoperable, and two, it's showing you how epic Unreal is compared to the web, because it looks so great.
Yeah,
So
it's great because
this was
this.
custom created, really by Vox, who we'll bring on for Future Space, but this was custom created for the connective, and you've just kind of imported it from chain, which is insane.
Yeah, his work is legendary. It's like we were it was very specific to work with the dynamic lighting that Lumen provides. So it's wild. There's no lights in here except for these emissive materials, and they're literally lighting the books underneath the lamp, and it's it's crazy, and it's just downloaded as an NFT. And like the fact that these objects are having influence on the scene around them, interacting with the time of day, is it makes me giddy. um, but yeah, so you also have the bathroom, the mirror actually reflecting the
Oh
scene.
my
You have the
god.
glass reflecting the scene as well. I This is a weird thing, but the tiles here, I've as we were making this, I've stared at this multiple times, just being like, that looks bonkers. Of a little uh hydroponics thing going on over here. The kitchen looks great. The
I mean,
nods to
I don't want to
different
be like,
metaverse groups.
I kind of don't want to be hyping ourselves too much, but as far as I'm concerned, this is as good as anything I've seen in any game. I mean, I know it's one apartment, but and there's all kinds of little details and Easter eggs in here. For those of you who are starting to follow the connective, you've got the avatars. Now you have these apartments, and there's all kinds of tiny little Easter eggs. And all of the posters were custom done by our team. Everything. Now there's an interesting. We'll get into this discussion, Killian, about AI in a minute.
And
Like that
what's
poster on the wall. That this kind of stuff here, like when you go to buy a playground, we'll be putting the playgrounds on the marketplace in January. What makes them unique is that each of them has different posters. You know, that those are the traits. The posters are the traits. The lighting, the carpet on the floor, and all of this was like custom done by the team. Vox, who did all of the 3D modeling, and then Marvin, who did all of the artwork. That's epic. Oh my god, it's so epic. I love being able to control the lighting like that. I know people like I'm a big fan of games like Red Dead Redemption, and I can sometimes just spend 40 minutes like just trying to take the perfect photograph of the canyon, you know. But you end
yeah,
up in a game world with like these very limited camera controls. But here, look at what you're doing. You're practically changing the type of film, right? Like film frame rate, color, filters.
yeah, a lot of this really was built out of like wanting to uh, have these controls so that I could reuse them in my creative process, which was for music videos and album drops that I was collaborating with an artist, a really talented artist named Dusk. And a lot of the learnings from there have basically influenced what are the controls that I would like. You know, the fixed camera, you can press Control 1, you save a camera spot here with the depth of field and everything, and you know the focus, and then you could just quickly swap over each setting very quickly. It's really wicked.
Well, and Killen's making a couple points here, which, and by the way, like this should be super interactive. If anybody wants to jump up on stage, please just kind of put up your hand and join us. We're a family here. But Killen's making a couple points. I'll start with the first one, which is he was saying that in theory,
Mhm.
small studios can start to produce high quality content. And I think that's already happening. Like you're seeing basically one or two people in a basement using Unreal to create Hollywood level movies. Like I remember one that was like a sci-fi thing. I think it was about 6 minutes long, and it was produced by one guy, and it was all digital humans, metahumans, and so like you could actually jump. You've used Bunshin to produce content, correct?
Yes,
Like
correct.
music videos and things like that.
Yep.
Is that a good segue over to the
Just what's
nightclub? Which is one of my favorite places.
yeah. Um, one thing I might want to also showcase is the fact that um, all of the stuff actually interacts with the weather. Let me switch over to a snow and switch to the VRM. So actually, you can always see it from here. You can see that the character is all wet from the rain. So GLBs that are imported, um, the playground has a special thing so that the interior doesn't get wet or take on weather effects. But the wicked thing is that it a lot of even if it's dynamically imported from NFT, whether that's GLB and whatnot, the idea was to make it so that it does have continuity with the world that it's in. Um,
Oh my God,
so
that's
so yeah,
amazing.
you should see the snow building up on the character over time, which is pretty wicked.
That's crazy. That's so crazy. It's like it's melting at first, but then the snow starts to accumulate. I see it on the shoulders
Yep.
there. That's
Yeah.
wild.
Yep.
And the other thing that Killen was just talking about was, well, two things. One was this ability to build in world, which was, as I was
Hmm.
saying at the beginning, I don't know if you were all here at the beginning, but that was the mind blowing moment for me in the metaverse. Was the moment I realized that I could build a chair, that everything around me was built by other people, and that's what, like, Bunshin is like the next evolution of that. And interoperability, I think, is the thing that makes it. It's always been the thing that makes it high utility, I guess. I don't know what the right word for it. But then the other thing that Killen was mentioning was just, these become sites for production, media production, gameplay, but also I think storytelling and RP and role playing, and that is a very big part of what you see on Roblox and Fortnite and even Minecraft and things like that. But imagine the kind of gaming, role playing, storytelling that you can do on a platform like this. And then imagine, I think, especially with Web3, that storytelling shifts into other media. It becomes, an ARG. It becomes something that exists equally in a world like Bunshin. And then you're attending a nightclub performance, and some of that storytelling happens in the real world at a nightclub. And I think that's
Yeah.
the future
Yeah.
of storytelling, and how narrative becomes super participative.
Yeah. Like it's a while to it's like a step by step process to build these, make the creative mode and everything as I'm building out the game is building and then transferring those over to the creative mode so that people can expand on the things that I'm building as I'm building them out. Um, so maybe this is kind of like a good segue into actually the world of Bunshin. And um, this is the initial apartment that you spawn in. Have some nods to collaborators with Bunshin from the past. And actually, the initial instigator to me jumping into interoperable avatars and Unreal Engine was MetaMike, who's in the community, who's been part of the team, and kind of sent me down a rabbit hole of just exploring all the opportunities there. Um, but yeah, this is in Shintokyo, in the slums, and it's a lot of it is based around kind of a kit bash mentality of, you know, uh, seeing what I can do as a solo dev, but tying everything together with kind of a narrative in mind. And let me take you out. So the setting of Shintokyo is kind of oh oh I may have frozen. Do you guys still hear me?
We hear you, but the screen is frozen. We can hear you, but the screen is frozen.
Gotcha. Hold on, just a second.
Will you get that? I don't know if you can still.
Yep.
Kellen was
Let me
asking.
reboot that. It's always when I have to demo something happens.
That's okay. Kellen was asking a question about how much
Yep.
control you have over things like the lighting rig, like, and an example he gave was, in theory, could you change the
Mhm.
rain to it raining blood? So how
Right.
much
So
granularity is there?
yeah, so based on Unreal, you can do a lot of that stuff as well. But for in Bunshin, a lot of it is uh trying to take trying to iterate on tools that make it easier to make content, and it kind of goes step by step. So it would first be getting the most rudimentary version, then a more customizable version, and kind of going down that route. Um, and so for the blood and stuff, well, actually, I've never actually thought about that. Collaborating with other creators, I've been people have been in the community actively using it or wanting to use it in certain ways. I've always been open to having them request certain things, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Let me check if I can try it out, and making sure that it also works in tandem with multiplayer. So it's always kind of a back and forth. So yeah, technically it's possible. I just need to tweak a few things and get it in there. But yeah, technically it can be done. Okay, so let me. All right,
I
so we're back in. Oh, and I need to stream. So VRAM, yeah, yeah. So VRAM, I got 12, or was it 16? 4070 Ti Super, but we've tested this on a 1070, which is like 8 GB of VRAM, but 8 is like the bare minimum. 8, you're probably playing at medium setting, no, high settings without the hardware ray tracing, with DLSS on at 1080p at 30 frames per second. So that's like the thing about this one, which is kind of, I may have gone down the deep end, is I I absolutely love the visual representation and like how far you could take things. And the idea was, how close can I get to a pre-render in real time? So, is there a good example of glass somewhere? Ooh, maybe, yeah, right here. So the hardware ray tracing on is right now, and you'll be able to see that the actual scene behind, so like like that right, is is literally being reflected on the helmet, and it's bonkers. We were and you could test how fine grained you want this to be. So I've actually exposed a lot of this. So in the graphics settings, when you actually go into having let Lumen hardware ray tracing on, and then you can check if you want your translucency reflect. And each one of these are pretty heavy, so that's why I've kind of made it to expose these values. You could change the hardware ray lighting quality, how many times the reflections are bouncing within those, how much refraction is occurring, and it's kind of an exploratory thing, but exposing that so that you can have the granularity to push your system to get the best output if you can. Um, and a main reason of doing this, unlike other games that are more focused on performance, is because this is going to be an ever evolving thing. And there also are creators that are using this and wanting to use it in a way that is not just, for social or gaming, but actually making visuals for music and whatnot. A lot of this stuff has kind of been exposed to allow people to push the graphics as much as they want to. Um, okay, now let me. Oh, yeah. So this is the remnants of Tokyo in the future. So this is where it would amount to Minatoku, which is kind of, oddly enough, the um how to explain it? The what's currently actually considered the more luxurious residential areas in Tokyo, but a lot of it has a low altitude. Glaciers have melted. Tokyo is underwater 70 meters, and that is remnants of Tokyo. Shibuya is somewhere down that way. Tokyo Towers probably half bent out there. You can't see it because of the sun, but there is Mount Fuji all the way out in the distance to the west. That building over there, or that mega city, is the Shintokyo, built on the remnants of the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building in Shinjuku. And so there's a clear delineation. That's the high life area, and we have the slums, and that's kind of where the story begins. Have weird kind of cyberpunk type things. There's a lot of weird motifs about Shintoism and stuff like that in here. A delineation of humanity from the rest of nature, which has a lot of the cyberpunk influences in where most of nature now is closer. Well, they consider AI to be closer to nature than we are at this point because it's been so long. Let me take you down to the underground. So the underground is like a pretty big thing about my fascination with Tokyo. The sewers, the hidden, I guess, the infrastructure, the train stations and whatnot. And the idea is that there are yokai, which are kind of an evolution of yokai have had certain types of characters where inanimate objects would gain a soul and trick or play with humanity in weird ways, maybe malicious, maybe some not. But the idea was that these inanimate objects that were given an objective, given a purpose, over time have kind of brought on a life of their own and become a yokai. So attendants for a train station or hotel receptionists and those robots and those cleaning systems have become, well, what we consider spirits in the old Japanese folklore. And you have the monks guarding the gates in the Torii underground between our realm and theirs. And we consider them to be closer to nature because we have become so isolated in this world after this huge calamity. But yeah, so cool backstory, but this is kind of where raids would start. A little underground elevator for flying car stuff that is soon to come. And this is the shooting range. I mean, it's a kit-bashed basic shooting range, which is then a lot. Oh, I will mind you, a lot of this is a moving target. But in terms of vibe, visual fidelity, this is kind of the vibe that we're going for. There's a lot of other parts that haven't been merged into this, and this is just kind of a creative tool. Focus on a creative tool, get the stable so that people can play with it. Import your VRMs, import your GLBs. And now let me go back to Shintokyo and go to scope out a place that is heavily under construction. But we're talking about nightclubs. So there is a nightclub concept in here. In the center of the Shintokyo, the massive megastructure that we saw. Let me go there. Oh, this is Club Null. So this is actually modeled around a few influences from different types of. Hold on. Different clubs that exist and used to exist in Tokyo. But yeah, it's based around, this is a prototype city that's been here, and this is being currently heavily reworked. So again, under construction. Yeah, some of the early concepts of having a social space for initially for holders, and it's kind of taken a life of its own and actually become a prototype stage for a nightclub scene, what's really cool about this is even though you are in the world, technically, if you do want to just enable the build mode in here, you can and just customize the scene. One of the things we can do is actually bring in the YouTube player. What, 5? Is that about the right size? Yeah, something like that. Let me just put on something. Maybe dusk while we do it. And I can also showcase some of the other tools that we've been working on for artists. So let me just change the volume and the brightness a little bit. So there's also audio reactive stuff in here as well. So, let's see, I don't know, 5? There we go. And bring in, let's say, another stage that is audio reactive. Rotate it a bit. Change colors. Yeah, it's don't mind the glitching fractal there for a second. But the cool thing is that this is actually that might be a little sensitive. Let me bring down the audio reactive in the options here just a little bit higher. Yeah, something like that. So it's actually reacting to your Windows audio and just analyzing the audio spectrum and just powering all these individual lights that are lighting the scene, these lights, and also that glitching fractal.
I actually think it's
It
cool
also
looking. I actually thought it was cool looking.
um, also have things like this, which
Oh my
is
god, that's so
a
beautiful. God, that's stunning. What the heck? I mean, I don't know if I'm the only person here, but I just kind of feel like going in and just building. Like it's like having the most advanced Lego set. Reminds me of why I got into all of this. It's awesome.
but yeah, so there's it's a real kit bash of a lot of tools that I've used within the workflow, and different things that have helped me make
Oh, that's
content,
that's
but then
amazing.
also slowly bringing kind of merging that with the game. So yeah, the audio reactive, the GLB, VRM importing, and it's got things like lights and changing the colors and kind of lighting the scene the way you want to, because I do think lighting is probably one of, if not the most important part of like a visual aesthetic for vibe in scenes. So yeah, like that is sort of that's basically Bunshin in a nutshell. The game side is heavily under development, slowly taking things that are made, exposing them so that you can riff on them without taking out the engine, learning Unreal Engine, and having all these nightmares. But making sure that everything that can be changed can also be reflected in multiplayer. So you could just be in a session and just jam out. But then as more things come in, like let's say NPCs, AI, like the whole idea is just to expose that. This isn't working right now, but you might have noticed in the settings you have a conv AI key. I want to the whole idea with Bunshin is to be agnostic. Like VMC protocol, other motion capture, if you have other ones that are popular, I want to make it so that it doesn't care what kind of tools you have. It could be a local LLM, it could be an open source thing. But the whole idea is let people bring. It's like BYOB. Bring your own content. Let me handle the pain of you know setting up all the different settings, getting the multiplayer working, um, and then on my end, I'm just sharing my world with you guys, and then seeing where it goes from there. Yeah.
Bravo, friend. Wow. I mean, can we have some applause from the audience
And
if
just
it's
one note regarding this, and this is going to take a while, so maybe we could like chat in the meantime. As I fly here, it'll actually take you back to the slums. This is actually a massive map. And yeah.
amazing, amazing, so amazing. I mean, I'm inspired every time I see it, and every time I see it, it's a little bit different, a little bit better. You've added some other new feature. What do you guys think in the audience? I mean, I think it deserves a round of applause for sure. Amazing work. I mean, I just feel like hanging out in that nightclub and playing around with the lighting system. Honestly, I mean, I could just spend a weekend futzing around with that nightclub, seeing what happens when you turn different types of music on and stuff. So it's like, I mean, it's been a long time
Oh God.
since I've opened Unreal. I was big into Blender. I actually did a bunch of stuff in ZBrush for a while, but Unreal was intimidating to me for some reason. I just found it so intimidating. Unity I could sort of figure out, but for some reason Unreal I couldn't figure it out. And what you've done is you've abstracted that away, um, and within a kind of a viewpoint, taken a viewpoint of, let's take this super complicated game engine, let's make blockchain access super easy, which is what I hope Emergence is bringing to the table, and then let's craft this, towards almost like a particular viewpoint, which is what happens if we give people a super highly rendered creative toolkit for storytelling. And then as you start to build your own world on top of it, this is one of those footprints in the metaverse, which I think is incredible. Do you mind if
Yeah,
I open
this
it
is
up?
actually.
I don't know if anybody in the
Yeah, yeah,
audience,
yes,
if
please.
anybody in the audience
I'm
wants to.
gonna cycle through some actually some multiplayer like in creative mode scenes that have like built over time, and I'll just cycle through those as we talk through.
Yeah, if anybody wants to join us, please do. I know it's you might not be able to chat. Oh, yep, Kellen's driving, for example. But if anybody wants to jump up on stage, please do. Oh, and I see Ryan's here also. Welcome, Ryan. I know Ryan's multitasking today, as you guys know.
Hey guys,
We got a
yep,
little sale going
I'm
on.
here having technical difficulties of my own, but also multitasking at the moment.
We got a busy week this week. Every time I see it, Ryan, I'm just blown away every time. I think that of all of the things, I think the biggest wow moment today was the snow on the connective avatar's jacket. That to me was like a wow moment. I didn't actually know that VRMs could do that.
Yeah, it's some kind of kit bashing different shaders to work with it, but yeah, it's you can actually see the water dripping down the VRM as it's just loaded in. Do I have my Yggdrasil map or did I not save it? Oh, right. Oops. I'm underneath something. There we go.
Amazing. Is that creative? Is that creative mode? Why the mountains look like mesh? For a second there.
Oh, yeah, the creative mode, yes, the iridescent rainbow mesh that is when it's in this creative mode, and then when
Okay,
you go out, it disappears.
I got it.
Um, Let me get the. There you go. Yeah, there's some funky things you can actually do with this as well. Let me. Is there a GLB that is? Oh, right. This is a level that I actually saved the the playground in, so it just loaded it in. Actually, that's a perfect GLB that I could test with this. So you also have things like Like, let's say if you want to just do like a rotation, add rotation to it, and does it work? Right now? What? Hello? Oh, right. No, that's that rotation. Let's go with this rotation. There we go. So now, should be. Did I set this to interact with the water? Okay, maybe
Oh, that
not.
was no way.
Um, Here, I could bring this in. Does this interact?
That would be hilarious.
Ooh. Oh yeah, right. For performance reasons, I may. That was something I was playing with quite a while early on with the water systems, but I think I might have scaled it
Yeah, a
down.
little bit
So
too much, too many physics for the
oh,
poor
but it
graphics
does
card.
actually.
That's awesome.
Oops, just a second.
So I guess, I mean, this is my little dream in the short term, and I know we've got Navi here. I think Beaker was doing some experimentations. I don't know if you saw that in the Discord chat. He was doing some experiments
Yep,
with the
yep.
connective avatar in Unreal. I mean, I kind of have this idea that we could have a little community project where we film a little, I don't know, connective music video inside of Bunshin, just as like a fun little way to experiment with the tools a little bit. Or I guess I'm looking for, this is a way of sort of for me to ask a question like, how can we all work together as a community to either help you out somehow? Like, what kind of help do you need? Or have a few people using Bunshin so that you have some people to be collaborating with.
Yeah, it's I'm always open to people that want to use the toolkits, make content, provide feedback. I'm constantly going back and forth between updating this build and also working on building out the rest of the game, and then periodically merging everything
Yep.
and kind of iterating that way. Um, yeah, I think that's one thing. Uh,
Or
if you do
I
have
guess
interest,
another way of
yeah.
asking this, like we've got Squid in the audience, and
Mhm.
I see there's a little bit of conversation going back and forth. If we had some people in the community who wanted to run a, figure out how to use Bunshin and just do a couple of little experiments, what steps do they need to take? And by the way, I'd be, we've talked about this, but I would love to put some EMC bounties on having people kind of experiment a little bit with Bunshin and give it a try. But what would the steps be? What steps would you suggest people take? Go to your website, download the stuff. What are the next steps?
Oh, right. I think for now, it's uh, I think for now it's very much try out the V009 first. Um, uh, Let me know if you create anything cool. In the meantime, I'll be prepping this, and I think we're going to be aligning with you guys on how to open this up to holders. The only concern I have is I am a solo dev, so it's very much I want to prioritize people who want to use the tool, and there's a capacity to how much I can handle.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's kind of yeah
Yeah,
the, the difficulty on my end.
yeah, I think what we're looking for is just like a couple of people to just sort of realize this is a work in progress. It's super early, super early alpha, um, and if anybody wants to kind of get involved in a couple little tests, we'll just keep that kind of conversation going. Amazing stuff, but to me, this is the future. I think the future is actually kind of like it's on a continuum. I think there's one of the things that excites me is the fact that 3D on the browser is becoming so good. But the other thing that excites me is, I mean, I look at this, it's almost like cinema. And so 3D, this idea that the internet is going to be rebuilt by game developers, I think we're really starting to see why that's true. Because first, you can go into a world like this that looks like I'm in a movie, And second, if you don't want to go into the world's going to come to you, because the web itself is, you know, you could put a mini world right in the browser, as you see in our marketplace. And so 3D, it'll be 3D everywhere, you know. And so I mean, I'm super excited because the interoperability that drives it. This avatar, look at that shot. It's like cinema. The camera is
And it's
slightly
great
out of
because
focus.
it's great because it's really easy to make scenes like this. It's just uh, it's taking the best of Unreal, but without all of the complexity of doing it. Um, uh,
That's friggin'
so yeah,
incredible.
it's great. You can make a scene. You can hang out with your friends doing it. You can riff on stuff. Use the actual like everything that I've done with in collaboration with artists has always just been screen captures. And screen captures and those are just edited in something like CapCut or give it to an editor, and that just becomes the trailer or the music video. And so putting all of that into here and having that kind of be the building blocks for uh, the art direction of the game, and also the tools that people can just use now before the game is out, is kind of the idea for Bunshin.
Yep. Amazing.
Uh,
Well, listen, I'll throw it out to
if
any
it,
last questions in the audience. And maybe we can get you to come back in a couple months for the next kind of update.
mhm.
Looks amazing. I've always loved the reactive music stuff. And you showed me one too, where it's not just reactive to what's in the game, but like you could be talking and it will react to your voice, for
Oh
example.
yeah. So yeah, I think if you talk, it should react.
Hello, hello.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's just feeding directly into the Windows output and just driving the audio systems and the reactive systems. And I think there's also really cool ways to use that in gameplay as well. But it's a hacky way, but it's a really cool way of making it so that you can have music like this YouTube player playing for everyone in sync, and then just letting the Windows, like letting the user's local thing just drive the animations for their local system. That doesn't have to be replicated or multiplayer. You just send the bare minimum of what's necessary for them to have the same experience, and then the game will power the experience for everybody else.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a lot of the idea that's coming from, your guys' philosophy of having the NFT be the continuity between different players, and then letting the experience possibly be different on other people's. And I think that's something really interesting to explore too.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, listen, I'm conscious of people's time and your own. I know it's late in Japan. It's late here in Vietnam, too. Thanks so much for joining us. Super excited to keep track of the progress, and we're really glad that you're part of New Worlds and part of the family. And I can't wait to keep building together.
Glad to be a part of it, and thank you.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for joining us. Hope you got some insight into the world of Bunshin. Just throw it open just to some last messages or questions. And yes, this has been recorded. We'll get it. We'll post it. Awesome. Well, listen. Thanks, Sens, and
Yep.
thanks everybody for being here. Amazing demo.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. See Squid with a last question. Yes, Squid. One last question. Yeah.
Cheers, Squid. Thank you. Gratitude. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.